Give her a second. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to call to order the September 27th, 2021 meeting of the Town of Niskayuna Planning Board and Zoning Commission. Is it Mr. Henry going to call the roll tonight?
Sure. Mr. Laflamme?
Present.
Mr. Screbutenis is excused and absent. Mr. Khan?
I'm sorry, here?
Mr. McPartland?
Here.
Mr. Darpino?
Here.
Mr. Oster?
Here.
Ms. Gold?
Present.
Ms. Shenfield is excused and absent. Chairman Walsh?
Here. And just a reminder, please, those here, pull your microphones down and pull them close so we get a good on the recording. Thank you. All right. First up, we have a couple sets of minutes. First set of minutes being from the August 23rd, 2021 meeting. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve those minutes. I have a second.
Second.
That was seconded by Mr. Oster. Was that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, comments and changes. I do have several, and I'd like to go through those, so just bear with me. Okay, first of all, the minutes are labeled as the September 13th minutes on the title, and they're actually the August 23rd, 2021 meeting. And also the headers associated on each page have the wrong date, and it should be 8/23/21. Also, Mr. Khan was absent, and it says he was absent, but it shows votes for Mr. Khan. So let's start with page 1, line 50. It says Mr. Laflamme made a motion to approve and was seconded by Mr. Oster. That's a repeat. It's already up above on line 46, so let's just strike line 50. Also on page 1, line 54, Mr. Khan is down as voting aye. Mr. Khan was absent, and there's eight votes listed there, and it was a 7-0 vote, so we have to strike line 54. We move to page 2, line 69. Mr. Khan is voting, so we have to strike that also, line 69. Strike that vote for Mr. Khan. And we'll move on to page 3. Let's see, line 84. It starts out with item number 3 under discussion items. That's actually item number 2. Just a typo there. And that goes for the next 2 items, which are line 93 and 191. They need to be renumbered, that sequence from number 4 to number 3, number 5 to number 4. Those are all of my comments on the meeting minutes. Does anybody else have any comments? Mr. Oster?
Yeah, similar to your point about who was there. I was not at the September 13th meeting, so I would not have voted aye on something that was approved.
Mr. Oster, we're working on the August 23rd meeting.
Oh,
right
sorry.
now.
Sorry. Yeah. All right.
All right. So August 23rd meeting minutes. Any other comments on those? Can I have a friendly vote? All those in favor of modifying the minutes that the items I just said signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed to those modifications? Okay, we have a modified set of minutes. Let's see. I think we're all set on a motion for approval. Any other questions or comments on the minutes? All right, all those in favor of approval of the minutes as modified signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, the 8/23/21 meeting minutes are approved with those modifications. We'll move on to the 9/13/21 meeting minutes. Have a motion to approve the 9/13/21 meeting minutes?
So move.
Moved by Mr. Pino. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Khan. Okay. And comments and corrections. Mr. Oster, you were not there, and I actually missed that one. Yep, Mr. Oster was excused.
Yeah, so that one's on line 82.
Yep, line 82. That would be a strike. So that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's actually only 6 votes. So that line 76 would also have to change, saying that the votes, the resolution was 6-0 instead of vice 7-0 also. So line 76 modified to 6-0 and line 82 strike. Any other comments on those minutes? Anybody? Okay, all those in favor of the modifications signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, hearing no one opposed, we have a modified set of minutes for the September 13th, 2021. All those in favor of approval of September 13th, 2021 meeting minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Okay, hearing no one opposed, we'll accept the September 13th, 2021 meeting minutes as slightly modified. Thank you. And we're in pretty good shape with minutes. Okay, we'll move on the agenda. Next up is public hearings. We have no public hearings tonight, so we'll move right to privilege of the floor. All those wishing to be heard regarding any planning and zoning matters in the town of Niskayuna, if you're here, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and we'll listen to what you have to say. Privilege of the floor is open. Yep. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, hi, Ben Mastriani. I live on Wyoming Avenue. First thing I wanted to thank the committee, Complete Streets, with Jerry and Laura and everybody that was on it. Got together a bunch of ideas for a lot of places in Niskayuna, but one particular for Wyoming, adding a stop sign at the end of Wyoming, Grinnicide, and also at the intersection of Lexington and Baker, going from the school over towards Schenectady. I've been coming here for a few years. I think the last one that did a count, they got a speed stop there, speed sign across from my house, which was great. And I think it was Officer Stevens sent an email. It was still adding up to about 600 cars a day, either going towards Schenectady or going towards Niskayuna. It's a big cut through. It's a wide road, so we're trying to think of different things we can do. Just a couple comments. I hope that pushes through for the stops. The last meeting, Jerry mentioned a couple things about speed bumps over office between Sand Creek and Central. There's also a lot of them off exit 11 and Northway. It really slows people down. Like I said, we have a big cut through problem. Some of the meetings, people, there's been some, what I like to call being an XG employee, near misses, especially at the end of Wyoming where it turns into Baker. I hope that all gets addressed. And I also noticed that coming from towards the school on Baker, you come over and then you turn and go on Lexington, and you turn on Wyoming and you go up to Schenectady on Girling. There's no speed signs. So, like I said, they did a good job of raising some ideas for the speed and trying to get people to come to a stop. But really, as I spoke before, it's really a volume problem. So all I can try to emphasize is the bumps do make people, use Knott Street and use McClellan and do that sort of thing. Because it's one street from Niskayuna, then it turns into Schenectady, and you cross McClellan. As far as Schenectady goes, there's never a police presence. Niskayuna, when I've called before, there's been a couple times where they did come and sit. You can't sit in front of the road because that's the way people slow down if there's a car out there. So if you're in a driveway, which they were a couple times, I know they made some headway with some people going. But the big problem is turning and going towards Schenectady. It's just like a drag strip. There's nothing to stop you, no sign to tell you to slow down, nothing. So whenever that push for the stop signs come, I hope it goes through, and I hope there's a couple other things they can do for the volume, not so much the speed. Okay?
Yep, thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
I appreciate it. Anybody else in attendance would like to be heard at privilege of the floor?
Hey, Ben, before you leave, I just wanted to update you. Just the supervisor and the new chief of police put that on their agenda for, it's going to be like the first week in October again. So I know you had a conversation with Jean today. I think probably the town board, I mean, it's good for the planning board to hear traffic concerns and thoughts for mitigating volume of traffic, but the town board's the one that sets the stop sign. And I think that is going to be on the town board agenda on one of the committee meetings on the first week of October.
Right,
First week of October for the public safety or this?
Public safety.
public safety. Yeah,
Yeah.
public safety
Yeah.
would make a recommendation to the town
Town
board,
board.
and town board would take action on,
And that's what
great.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure you knew that timeline. Okay, important.
All right, thank you, sir. Yeah, you have a good night. Anybody else in attendance who would like to speak at privilege of the floor? And then I'll turn it over to Laura. Do we have anybody that's logged in that want to speak virtually, or do we have any letters or emails to discuss?
I just checked, and there's nothing virtual for tonight.
Okay, so that's it. Last call. Okay, hearing no one else for privilege of the floor, we'll close privilege of the floor. We'll move on the agenda. This is tough to talk with this thing. I was mumbling away here. Let's see. We have no unfinished business tonight, so we have new business. Under new business, we have one resolution tonight, and that resolution is Resolution 2021-31, a resolution for site plan amendment to Resolutions 2017-30 and 2018-19 for Phase 1 of a 260-unit planned unit development known as Rivers Ledge of Niskuna, 2837 Aqueduct Road. That resolution was posted on the town's website, and it's available anytime. It's quite lengthy, and I'm not going to read all the conditions. Basically, this is the second amendment to the original approval. So it's a carryover because this is a work in progress because we still have work to be done on Phase 1 and a Phase 2. The primary changes to this resolution, besides noting the reasons why we're supporting the location of the new recreation center, basically, there's all the changes are all marked up in there. It's on page 5, line P, says applicant shall install a sidewalk from the edge of Rivers Ledge of Niskuna property line down Aqueduct Road to the entrance of Aqueduct Park on Aqueduct Road. So that's one of the major changes. And the other major change is the reason that we're here tonight, and that's condition number 17, which the earthen berm and plant buffer associated with the 3300 recreation building is required to be monitored and maintained by the property owner in perpetuity to ensure adequate screening from the Mohawk Hudson bike hike trail, and any external HVAC heating equipment is required to be screened and monitored for visual and noise impacts to the Mohawk Hudson bike hike trail. So those are the changes. Do I have a motion for approval of this resolution?
So move, Chairman.
A move for approval by Chris Laflamme. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Yeah, I know that we already have a second on the floor by Ms. Gold, but yes, thank you, Mr. Khan, who's also a project lead. So we have a resolution with a motion and a second, and we have some discussion. And I know we also have the applicant, a representative of the applicant online with us tonight. So I guess I'll turn it over to Mr. Khan or Mr. Laflamme. Anything you'd like to talk about?
No, we've reviewed a couple of these the recommendations, the suggestions, the feedback we got with the applicant, Charles. And this past week, actually, 3 of us from the board went out to actually walk the property. We wanted to better understand the distance that the HVAC equipment would be from the actual bike path and the height of the berm as you're using the bike path. And by and large, we really felt the berm and the actual existing vegetation that is actually an additional layer to the bike path than just the berm would be adequate. And we explored putting the HVAC on the other side of the building to the north, and that really didn't necessarily make better sense to us either. It could have possibly been visible from further down the bike path or on the way to the new park access that this project is bringing. So long story short, we feel that the way that was written, it would be suitable for this project to have it as proposed. Mr. Khan, did you want to add to that at all?
Do you have anything, Mr. Khan, to add? So he locked up possibly, huh?
He looks locked up, yes.
Just at the wrong time.
Oh, he's back.
Yeah, I'm having some difficulties coming in and out, but hopefully you can hear me. Nothing to add.
Nothing to add.
I'm okay with everything that you said.
The only thing I'd suggest is, one thing is that we make a, friendly modification, just that it says 3,300 and that just the square foot should be added to the condition 17. I don't think we need to have a modification, it's just a simple modification. And I just wanted to point out that it's required to be screened, and that's being screened by the berm and the vegetation, the planting plan that goes along with the berm is what we agreed to. No additional fencing or anything along those lines, strictly the vegetation. Now, if it's monitored for noise impacts and it turns out that there's a concern, and at that point in time, we can, address possibly adding some other shielding if it's noisy. From our discussion at the site, it sounds like we shouldn't have that problem. So, but we'll make sure it's monitored, and that's what this condition states. Any other comments regarding this resolution or anything, Mr. Pafunde?
No, thank you very much, everyone who worked on this with us. I appreciate it.
I just wanted to make sure Kevin noted it, but we did change the phase 2 requirement was originally would consider the sidewalk, and because of, this is impacting the Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike Trail, I changed it to shall put the sidewalk in, just to make that a little stronger because they are getting this benefit. And then when they do phase 2, they should make that pedestrian connection from phase 2 to down to the Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike Trail with the sidewalk.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, discussion? No? Okay, Mr. Henry, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme,
Aye.
Mr. Khan,
Aye.
Mr. McPartland,
Aye.
Mr. Darpino,
Aye.
Mr. Oster,
Aye.
Ms. Gold,
Aye.
Chairman Walsh.
Aye. Motion carries, the resolution is passed, and we're all set for now on Rivers Ledge. And there's no other further discussion on the agenda. Do you have anything else, Mr. Pafunde, for us for tonight?
No, again, thank you folks very much.
Okay, well, thank you. All right, we'll move on. We're all done with new business tonight. We'll move to discussion items. The first discussion item being 1356 Balltown Road. This is a site plan application for 20 townhomes, 10 buildings. We have representatives of the applicant here tonight, and Mr. Caponera, right?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, Ms. Robertson, and those of the board members and others that are watching this telephonically, I should say. As the board knows, my name is Victor Caponera. I represent the owner of this property, Niskayuna BR Holding Company, LLC. And about 4 years ago, those members that were still on the board will recall my clients who are here tonight, members of the LLC, Tim Miller and Bob Miller, even though they're masked, they are here. Mr. Dave Engels, the engineer on the project, and Wendy Holzberger, who is our traffic engineer. The presentation was made 4+ years ago for 50 apartments, 6,000 square feet, small shop commercial. The board had 2 public hearings. After hearing the concerns of the members of this board, concerns of the neighbors, my client withdrew its application and then set out on a fact-finding mission to determine, in their opinion, what the property is zoned for, what the best use for the property is. They're going to do something with the property. And so here are the facts, and I'm just going to try to keep this simple. The property is 5.3 acres. It's 100% zoned R2, and it's the only piece in the town's overlay district that lies in an R2 zone. The 5.3 acre site is surrounded, as we all know, by CN zoning to the north, which is WRGB, CN to the south, which is CVS Pharmacy, R3 to the east, which is the Van Antwerp Village Apartments, and the town master plan states that the 5.3 site should remain R2. Another fact is, given the location of the property and what I've just articulated in terms of the zoning, it's a very unique piece of property, given what I just indicated about the surrounding commercial uses. Our current revised plan, as I've told you before when we were in the meeting on 8/23/21, is a significant reduction from the proposal that was put before this board 4+ years ago. Instead of the proposal for apartments, 50 apartments and commercial, it's now strictly a residential proposal for single-family townhomes, 20 to be exact, no apartments, no commercial use. And again, we vetted this out the last time we were here a month or so ago. 28% of this proposal is going to remain forever wild. 28%, which is a fairly significant amount of property. We've reduced the curb cuts from 8 to 2. Wendy Holzberger spoke not only in her commentary that she made on the 23rd of August, but also in her writing, that there would be less traffic with the proposal for the townhomes versus 17 single-family homes. And the facts also show that the Niskayuna Town Zoning Board and Planning Board already determined in 2010 that the commercial use, which is now CVS Pharmacy, is not going to alter the character of the neighborhood. And in 1994, the 12 townhomes that were approved just down the street, across the street at 1437 Balltown Road, was determined to have no significant impact on surrounding properties. So at the 8/27/21 meeting, the planning board asked for several items so that you could deliberate and look at what we're proposing, because what are we doing? We're looking for a recommendation because we know we have to go to zoning. So the first thing that was asked for is a table of variances needed. So we worked with the famous engineering firm of Ingalls, and Dave came up with the proposal. We submitted it. Actually, he submitted it in his letter to you, Mr. Chairman, on September 17th, and the variance table is provided. So we gave you that. These are area variances, not to be confused with use variances. Area variances basically are variants which allow strike that. Area variances are variances that deal with uses that are allowed in the zone, but they don't meet the strict requirements of setbacks. And I will note that based upon my reading of your code, I don't see anything in there specifically dealing with townhomes. I might be wrong, but relative to setbacks and things of that nature. So we're working within the confines of our code, your code, I should say, and I'll just note that. They wanted to show the open space. It's shown on the site plan, and that's also shown, and that was submitted on in Dave's letter. Also, there was a discussion of moving the northerly driveway entrance south between lots 2 and 3. And do you have that, Laura? Can you bring that up? As you see on the site plan, you see on the left side, the entrance was all the way to the north. I'm going to show you. It's up here. And it's been moved now further south. Dave, did you say about 150 feet? Correct. About 150 feet further south. So that was taken care of. Add approximate limits of disturbance to the site plan, and David put on a line for approximate limits of disturbance, and disturbance totaling 4.6 has added to the site plan. I don't know if you can see it here, but Dave, if you could just outline it real quick.
The red line here?
You're much steadier than Mr. Hirschberg that does that.
And again, that's just an approximate line based on the concept of preliminary plans to date. One of the reasons we went into the open space here is we do have some stormwater management
Dave, no, they won't be able to hear you on if you don't speak into the microphone. You could take that one if you wanted.
It's either you could just go to podium and use your laser from there. Yep, that'll work too.
I can you hear me now?
Yeah, you should be good now.
Okay. The red line here is the approximate limits of disturbance. And what I was saying is we actually are going slightly into the open space here. We're looking at some bioretention, then probably some type of just a dry pond for stormwater attenuation. Again, those details will be determined as we go further into the preliminary and final stages. If the board is favorable with the sketch plan, we would design the stormwater in accordance with the DEC standards.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Board wanted to see the 17-lot single-family layout. We provided that also. Laura, you can bring that up, please. So as you can see there, there isn't the Forever Wild area that I just spoke of. And there was a request to place a note on the plan indicating the roadway and stormwater management areas. We confirmed that it's private, will not place a demand for maintenance services from the town. I had mentioned that to the board the last time we were there. The road, as well as the stormwater retention and detention, is ours, and it wouldn't place any burden on the town. Comment 7 include a summary letter from the applicant regarding the discussion with the neighbors, and a very thorough and articulate rendition of what happened was done and submitted to the board. Also, in terms of the meetings that were had, that was also submitted. Updated traffic assessment, including accident data, reduction in vehicle trips based on credit for existing 5 homes, reduction in curb cuts from existing conditions, as well as single-family plan and number of vehicles traveling through each of the adjacent intersections. Wendy prepared that and submitted it in a letter dated September 24th. And I believe that incorporates what you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board had asked us to do, to come back for consideration relative to our proposal for this significantly reduced proposal than where it was back in 2016-17. And with that said, we're prepared to answer any questions with the team that we brought in here tonight.
Okay, well, thank you. And I'll start with Mr. Pino, the project lead, see if he has anything specifically he'd like to ask or open to the board.
Great. Well, thanks for the updates and the presentation. The meeting and the notes and the comments from the public focus group was actually pretty good. There was a mixed amount of comments. Some were very favorable. Some had some questionable things that were in there. So it's nice that it didn't look like it was edited, but truthful, which is good information that we need to have to go through, I think. But generally overall, the comments seem to be pretty well geared towards the positivity of this plan, specifically comparing it to what was the previous plan with the commercial aspects to it. Moving the road, I think, at least initially looking at it, is probably a little better because it doesn't align with Barcelona across the street. If it did align, I think we would push for that a little bit more, but staggering that would probably give some better sight lines, something that we can explore in a little bit more detail. One of the other observations I had is that the internal roadway is very close to Unit 20, which is all the way on the right-hand side. So if you look at the one coming off, right there, that roadway is right up against that unit. So assuming that there's going to be windows on the side of that, or possibly a bedroom or something, that is in much closer proximity than any other portion of a building that's near that road. Whether that road can be moved or slightly reconfigured, it may be beneficial for that one end unit. Let's see. We'll probably talk about traffic a little bit more detail when we get more of the discussion. And then the other thing is, I know the renderings didn't get changed that much, but my initial review of these is that I think generally the plan is good, but we've got a lot of repetitive facades. And I personally would like to see a little bit more diversity in those housing units, whether the floor plan's the same, but the elevations change or the roof lines change slightly. A lot of developers have found ways to take a couple key floor plans that they have in their developments, and they're able to articulate that through roof lines or porches, things like that. Again, we're not getting that far down the road at this point. However, you know, when you do present to the architecture review board after you go through zoning, that's probably something that they will touch base on. Oh, and I think the other thing that should be mentioned too is that this updated floor plan also eliminated the spillover parking, which there was a previous plan that had several extra spaces that were behind both sections on the access road that went through, and those have been eliminated. So we should note that. I think those are the major.
Good, thanks, Dave. Yeah, I have to agree. I'm looking at the new revised plan now. It's nice to have some extra parking for visitors. Driveways look like they're probably short. Looks like they're 2-car garages, so you probably can get a couple visitors at least in each household there. But I guess if there's an opportunity for a parking field, I guess it's something we can discuss in the future, something to think about. I do agree, Dave, that's a good point regarding the road. That's awful tight to that one unit. Even if you compare it to the other units that the road passes between units 2 and 3, it looks like they got a little bit more space there. So it is a little tight there. I could see that being maybe hard on the sales for that unit, or, like you said, bedroom windows or what little yard there is kind of close to the road. So that could be a concern. I do have a question regarding the movement of the road. It's positive, and I think it was one of the comments from the public that they like to see that repositioned. So I think it's better. It minimizes the opportunity for any confusion along Almeria and with the WRGB access road. I guess I have a question. I'm not sure. Maybe Ms. Holzberger might be the right person to answer it. Is it, and Dave, you've kind of mentioned this, is it better to have the roads like aligned with Barcelona or separated? One of the things we've seen in the past, when you have roads aligned, at least you have eye contact with the other people. I guess where you're relocated, I guess it's not a problem, but is it better to have it, lined up with Barcelona, or is that undesirable for some reason I'm not aware of? Just out of curiosity.
May I introduce to you Ms. Holt?
Yeah, and Chairman Walsh, I had the same question, specifically the one you had, but also in general, it seems like this road layout could be optimized a little bit more, but let's go ahead.
Hi, Wendy Holzberger from VHB. So, it is desirable if you can align across, but some of it depends on, the layout and, for a specific site. So, agreed that it's better moved where it is now, and it does meet like DOT spacing, spacing between intersections where it is now. So it is in a good location. It could be looked at moving farther south, but we're also trying to make the driveways work for the site and the alignment, and not make, the road too straight, so that we're trying to make it so it's not an attractive cut through.
Exactly.
So all these different things we're considering as to why we didn't go all the way down to Barcelona.
No, I'm with you as far as you don't want to have a perfect alignment and straight cut through, because then everybody would just shoot right across to Van Antwerp, and that would be undesirable. I was curious if maybe Mr. Ingles, if there was a thought for potential site layout to align Barcelona and then still stagger the road to make it a tortuous path. It may not work with the site. I didn't know if you just considered it at all. And that's just a question.
We actually did have the road opposed from Barcelona at one time, but that creates a very difficult entrance to the site, because here's the property line right here. So it's getting it very near the south, which makes it very hard to get back up and around. The other thing we were concerned with being down here too was queuing on Balltown. As Balltown backs up from the light down at Van Antwerp, that could be potentially problematic. So we wanted to get as far up in the up Balltown Road as we could as well. So I would say we did look at it, and we did not find it preferable being across from Barcelona. So as Wendy stated, either we would like to be across from either of these two intersections, or we want to be reasonably distant, which in this case, we're about 150 feet south of that intersection, enough that we're not in direct conflict.
Okay. Sounds reasonable to me.
I have a question along the lines of David's point with the far right structure being closest to the road. Was it looked at to make that road go between the furthest right and the second to the furthest right, like kind of like what you did to the
Yeah.
left?
We can definitely look at that. We agree that we're pretty tight there. It looks like we're only realistically about 5 feet away from the side of that building. So we could look at either shifting some of the structures to the southwest, down away from Van Antwerp Village, or going in between a couple of those structures as you state. So we can definitely
Yeah.
explore that further as we go forward.
Yeah, it could actually, the Van Antwerp Road could actually go in between the two middle buildings, right? Sort of make it symmetric, because it is a little bit close. I know it's within the regulation, but it is a little bit close to the Van Antwerp entrance, right? The way it's positioned right now. The Van Antwerp Village entrance.
Is it possible to reach out to the Van Antwerp Village and see if you could create a shared access agreement with them so that you could connect right into their road, and then you wouldn't have to do a curb cut onto Van Antwerp?
Yeah, that's even better, Laura.
They just pulled, it's really not very far. It's almost like less road to build.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a utility pedestal somewhere in that area, but that would certainly make the houses more spacious.
Yeah.
Less
And
pavable
for
space.
whatever it's worth, Laura, I do have a question for you, actually.
Yeah, this one.
And sorry, I'm jumping around geographically here, but the access road for WRGB,
Yes.
is that just an access road, or can that actually become a road?
I think we talked about that several times in the past, and maybe the applicant, I think, had a comment regarding that, right? I think your question is approaching WRGB and see if we could utilize a road. I know that was discussed before with this application. I don't know if you want to
The applicant did contact the owners of the WRGB property, and they were not receptive to sharing that access road. So that was explored, and I guess we'll say denied by the adjacent owner.
And
okay, so just to finalize my question for Laura, so that is clearly an access road for WRGB, their property. The town has no say over that potentially being a quote unquote town road.
Correct. That's true of actually both the WRGB road and the Van Antwerp Village road. But the WRGB road is even grade wise not as good. Like the Van Antwerp Village looks like it's pretty close in grade and everything.
yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. I think it's at least worth reaching out and
We
getting,
can explore that.
explore it. Exactly.
Can I give you my experience, having done a few hundred of these? You get involvement with mortgage companies, then you have to go to them, and my experience has not been that successful, but we'll see. I mean, it's a good idea, and if the Van Antwerp ownership is willing to engage, I'd certainly try to work on that.
You can really emphasize that it's not apartment buildings, that you're not taking apartment clients away from them, that these are owner occupied, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would think that even if you're dealing with mortgage companies, even just from a point of view of selling one of your buildings, it's better than having it be you having to sell something that you build that's only 5 feet away from an internal road.
Well, we'll change that no matter what. So anyway, we'll explore that.
Okay. I've got one question. I think it might be for Laura. The 1994 town homes to the north. Could you refresh my memory what the zoning was there? Is that R2 also?
It's R2.
And did those properties get variances?
They got use
They
variance.
got use variances.
So I didn't have to worry about any of the area variances were negated by the need for a use variance?
Correct, because the use variance sets its own zoning. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, before I made that comment, we foiled it.
Yes, thank you.
I have those decisions in my file.
So to just,
Chairman,
oh, go ahead.
Chairman Walsh, I have a question.
Sure.
Oh, Laura, could you show the map again, please?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Oops.
I was just curious about the internal roads that go down toward unit number 8 and unit number 1. Would there be a turnaround requirement at the end of those, or are they short enough that they don't require that? And how would they be plowed, I guess, would be the other question.
They're private roads. Is your question whether or not the municipality is going to be plowing them, or just a generalized question?
Just a general question.
As I said before, these are all private roadways. It's going to be maintained and owned by the property owner. So, Dave, I don't know if you want to comment on that. He's got a question about plowing.
Yeah, it's probably still important to check though, especially because you guys removed the dumpsters. So you'd have garbage trucks going up and down the road. And you would also have, you just make sure that it meets the requirements of emergency services, because that doesn't matter for private or public as well.
Yes. To answer the first question relative to the plowing, the plowing would be private, so they could just plow the snow off the end of either of the dead ends. I think, as Laura states, we probably want to speak to emergency services to make sure they're good with these affairs. In terms of firefighting, this one I know is less than 150 feet, so I'm sure they could set up here and still fight any kind of fires over here. Likewise, I don't think they're much over 150 feet going down here. But again, we'd like them to weigh in, and we would accommodate as much as possible. Potentially, we could put like a hammerhead or a turnaround at the end. There's space at the end of each of those that we still could put a little T on here if necessary.
Or you might even be able to get that. I think you have a legal right to connect to the CVS parking lot, right? I mean, you wouldn't want that for obvious reasons, but you might be able to do emergency access there for emergency vehicles.
How would they have a right to that connection?
You pull it down.
I think they do because of a lawsuit they got into with the CVS, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you do. If you need it.
There is an access point. There were paper streets that were there, and there was a lawsuit that was filed. Mr. Tentor, the previous landowner, had filed a lawsuit against the Gordon brothers that were developing that. And so there is a decision that says we have the right.
For emergency access, I mean, you obviously don't want your clients to be entering from the CVS, but for emergency, you could put just a gate.
Yeah,
Mhm.
or sometimes we do just what the grass mats.
Grass.
Yeah, so it's, it doesn't look like anything, but it can be driven over if there was an emergency,
One other thing I just want to mention is that we did send this plan to the fire chief, and he did comment and really had no comment. So I don't know if that letter made it into the submission, but we can get that to you.
Yeah.
You can see what he had to say about it.
And also part of the town process would be to send it to fire and police for comment from our angle also. So thank you.
Yeah, with a specific question about the turnarounds, right?
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
So just staying on the access road, it's going to be used as a cut through periodically. Just that's the reality of people figure things out. It's a busy road. But going back to the elimination of the parking spaces, if any of these units has any type of graduation party, something like that, if parking on the road is good for overflow parking temporarily, then that's fine. But not having a small satellite area for a couple spaces or even another space that could be used as temporary parking that could serve another purpose, possibly. I would like you just to explore that a little bit more in depth. I never promote more parking, but I think in this case, you know, the driveways are short. I like the fact that they're tucked away from the road. They're on the backside. You've taken the alley concept, which is great. You know, there will be a day once a week the garbage truck has to come in, or leaf recycling, or whatever it is. They got to move stuff out to the street. However, they're going to handle that with their little area. But just occasionally, there's going to be times where if people are parking on that road and there are people cutting through and there are other residents coming through, just weaving around there may be a little tight.
Did this get discussed already, Laura? I know you mentioned some agreement with CVS, but those back parking spaces at CVS, could there be an agreement between the two of them to use those? Was that already discussed, the possibility? I can't remember.
Maybe, although people are pretty lazy, like it's probably too far away from most of the buildings, even if they had that agreement. Like they'll just take the path of least resistance. So unless they were having something really serious and they were like, yeah, just, you know, park your cars in the CVS, but it would be unusual for them to even use them if they had an agreement.
And people are carrying stuff and it's winter, they're not going to want to park
I mean,
there.
we put sidewalks where people are supposed to walk, and if it's not the shortest route, they don't walk on them.
I mean, it seems like there is, especially in that southern side, is there an option for a little bit of a parking lot there or a few parking spaces? Where the road bends in between the two sets of buildings, the ones facing Balltown, the ones facing Van Antwerp.
The reason why we eliminated it, because the public comment didn't want
it.
Yeah. So we eliminated it. But we're happy to put it back.
The reality is that this, you know, little pocket neighborhood now has nothing on Balltown and nothing on VA, and you don't want people crossing those streets to come over to that neighborhood if they do have something. Just I think something worth exploring.
I agree, and we can take care of that. And I agree with Laura too. People normally will take the path of least resistance. So could you show David on the plan where you had it before?
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. I see it from the previous plan. Yes, something like that. Maybe not all of those, but maybe one set of them.
50 or 60 maybe. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Just for a little context on the overall area, I will note that across the street on Balltown, you have single-family detached homes, and the same is true on Van Antwerp. And you're near Heartland, which is a single-family detached neighborhood. The history of the CVS location goes back many years. It's been commercial for, I think, all of my life or close to it. I remember a time when there was both a pharmacy and a grocery store. And the grocery store burned down, and then we had the video store.
There's actually a gas station before way back, on that corner.
So by the time that CVS came in to take over the whole site, and there were professional offices in back. So when CVS came in to take over the site, it was really decreasing the commercial use. So it's not that we thought it was a great location, but it was an improvement over what we had. And we've tried to keep the businesses out of the neighborhoods, but we still want to keep Balltown more residential than commercial. We don't want Altamont Avenue, let alone a Wolf Road type of street. It's a small suburban community, and we do plan to keep it that way. That's what people tell us they want.
Precisely why we made such dramatic and substantial changes to the proposal 4 years ago.
Well,
thank you.
My opinion, frankly, is I love the regular single-family home plan. I think it fits the neighborhood far better. But I would hope we would have not just the comments we've gotten so far, but I would hope there's a public hearing to come with this
Yeah, it's a subdivision proposal, so we would do a public hearing. But the funny thing about it is it needs area variances, so it may end up being that the zoning board has the first public hearing. You know how that happens with us sometimes when it needs the area variances,
Right.
which I
Yep.
find to be hard. But I mean, the zoning board has a public hearing, we have a public hearing, and yeah. There'll be multiple notifications to the property owners. It's actually probably, in this case, the zoning board would be the first notification. They get, I think, a 200-foot radius, and then we do a 200-foot radius.
Yeah, Laura, along those lines, kind of as a procedural matter, I'm wondering if we could talk just a little about what variances that would be necessary for the plan as proposed could be waived, if any, by our board. And then secondly, I had mentioned before that I'd be curious to see how this would look as a average density development, which typically is on a much larger parcel of land. But I did take a look at our code, and by my reading of it, there's nothing that excludes this smaller plot from being an average density development.
I have to double check, but I think we looked into this, and average density development applies to R1 and RR, but potentially not R2. Did you double check that? I didn't look that
I
up on my
think you're
phone.
right, but
Yeah.
has to check. I do have one other comment on the road alignment with Barcelona, or the lack of alignment. I'd be interested in both police and fire input on that.
Yeah, we always send it out to both, like I said earlier, for review. Once we get down to a point where we agree on a sketch plan that's ready for them to weigh in on.
I can think of cases where having the staggered roads have made it much more difficult to control traffic in an emergency. So their opinion would be very valuable.
And I think the applicant mentioned they already did a preliminary
Yep.
review with, I assume, the fire department, but we'll get it to police also. So while Laura's looking up the average density development requirements, I think it's a minimum of 10 acres, but that's something that probably can go to the zoning board of appeals for the average density development, as long as it's allowed in the R2 zoning district. We do have the table of the, I guess would be the required, or the deficiencies for the variances, which would in turn would identify the variances required, primarily, the setbacks between one building, because they're, touching each other, right? The dual townhomes. So they're the zero in all those places, right? That's where that comes from. Rear yard setback, anything in red, that the information that was included in packet is something that's going to require variance.
Yeah, and that's a question I had, Chairman Walsh, at least on taking them one column at a time. On the side setbacks, the lot 1, lot 2 zeros are strictly due to the fact that it's a townhome, correct?
Sitting across the lot line, yes.
Correct.
Right? So every pair of lot of zeros, right? So for example, between lot 2 and lot 3, right, is a side setback between those two buildings satisfied? I'm just looking at the drawing.
Oh, right. So there's two sides to each townhome. The zero is when the townhomes are sitting together, but what's the distance between
Right.
the detached twin townhomes? Yeah.
There's a requirement of a side yard setback, and because the way we propose these buildings, they adjoin the property line, that means there's zero setback, side yard setback between each of the two buildings. Thereby,
Right, between two adjacent numbers, right?
Correct.
1 and 2.
That's exactly.
But what about between, let's say, 2 and 3,
Yeah, between units.
which are two separate buildings?
Is there 30 feet between each building? Because then each one of them would be getting the 15-yard setback, right?
He's talking about between here.
Yeah, it's hard for me to see that dimension. I'm not sure if it even is dimensioned in the drawing. Let's not pick 2 and 3. Let's pick 3. In this picture, let's pick 3 and 4, 4 and 5.
Yeah, between 4 and 5 right here. Maybe.
You know what that is, Dave? 4 and 5?
I don't, but I'm looking at the underlying setbacks, and it looks like we are just shy, so we might need a foot or two there between the actual buildings. That's
Good comment.
Good comment.
Yep.
We'll check that. I think we were concentrating on the
Zero setback, yeah.
sidewall.
Y- y-
Look closely at-
Yeah, because what I've been trying to do is, I personally find it perfectly reasonable that the setback between 1 and 2 would be 0, and between 3 and 4 would be 0, etc. Right? Because that's just the nature of the geometry of the townhouse.
Right.
But I think we'd want to see what it looks like between the adjacent buildings.
We can look at that, absolutely.
Actually, we do meet it. I'm looking at the plan.
We do meet
We
it?
do meet it on all of them on Balltown. I think we would be shy on a few of them on.
Antwerp, okay.
Here. You can see the space here.
Yeah, that's what I thought we met.
We meet all of these.
Yep.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it doesn't help the proximity of the road next to that end unit. And was it number 20 or whatever?
Right. So Chairman Walsh, I mean, we've done this in the past, but I'm just going to throw it out into the discussion. I mean, potentially you can do with one less building on the Van Antwerp side and get everything to work out, including the road and the setbacks. And it would move in a direction that the focus groups actually even mentioned, right? When people say, quote unquote, too much.
Jengus, I was just having the same thought, and I was looking at the map drawn to display the number of lots possible as single-family homes in an R2 development, and it looks like the applicant only got to 18.
Yeah, I was looking at that map also, but I actually couldn't even find the maximum number. Yeah, 18. Yep, I see it there. Yep. But is that 18th lot? Does it have a home on it? I don't think so. Or does it? Yeah, I guess it does. Yeah.
No, it's a stormwater lot.
No. Yeah, or it's I mean, that's what I thought. The 18th lot is a stormwater. Right? Yeah.
So one of the things the zoning board is going to ask is, can you reduce the amount of variances? So it's something to look at. You guys definitely want to probably explore that. And then
Yeah, I mean, so the thought would be, I know it's a big deal for the applicant, but one less building on the Van Antwerp side, meet all of the adjacent the neighboring buildings setbacks in between buildings. 0 is perfectly acceptable in between the two sides of the townhouses, the single building, and then we can, we've reduced quite a bit of the ask there.
yeah.
Yeah, to Laura's point and to your comment, I mean, it's quite, when you go, we're not the ZBA, obviously, you know that, but when you go to the ZBA, that question will come up because, as you know, Mr. Caponera, minimizing the need for variances, and one alternative would be to reduce the number of units, which makes it, more compliant in the motion and the direction of goodness. So it'd be good to at least evaluate that ahead of time.
We'll study it. I mean,
I know it's a matter.
I can see there's smoke coming up off his.
Yeah, I know it's a matter of economics also.
Yeah,
but-
it is, and that's.
Yep.
That's another issue that I talked to my client about.
Yeah, I understand.
Before we even came in front of this board with this proposal, it's the economics of the whole thing. Too.
Yep.
So I get it. I know how our area variances go, and we'll take a look at it.
Yep.
But even if your magic number was 20 units, you could group several together. You get another building typology, and you have 3 different types of buildings, which is going to diversify a little bit more. It'll help you with the setbacks.
Yeah.
And you might be achieving 2 good things at the
Yeah.
same time.
I
Yeah.
see what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's, I mean, this is a good first pass. I think it's a, work in progress, but, if 20 is the number, you definitely can get these variances down to a more manageable level. Once you
Right.
go see zoning.
I mean, I do want to say, I'll speak personally here, and I'm going to give myself a 10% chance to maybe change my mind later, but, I know we're pending still a traffic discussion. Pending that discussion, the fact that these are townhomes, along with the smaller area, the Forever Wild location, the Forever Wild area, et cetera, I could see that would be something I'd be okay with. And I took, Ms. Gold's comments into consideration. But let's just see what it looks like to be something that minimizes the variances that are what I'm going to call now I think that, again, 0 variances between, 2 townhomes in the same building. I think that's a practical constraint, which we should be able to accept. But the rest of it, I think, is something that still needs a little bit of work.
And to circle back to Mr. McPartland's question, these type of variances aren't the type that the planning board can waive. So we really, in this table, can't waive any of them. And then for the average density development, average density developments only apply to RR and R1. That's section F 220-28 F1. Oops.
I assure you that if I thought that this board could waive them, I would have been asking. But it was a great question. I must
Yes,
say.
no, good question, and thank you, Laura, for looking that up.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
All right, did we, as Mr. Khan mentioned, did we want to talk about traffic or anything, updates from the report that was submitted by VHB at all, or?
So we haven't circulated the VHB report because it came in a little too late for us, but we'll get that out to the board as early as possible. You could talk about it tonight, and then we'll follow up by sharing it with the board.
Wendy?
Yeah. I mean, one key question with traffic, and if we remember the older proposal with the apartment buildings, I do recall, and please, you can correct me on this, but it was something like during the day, it was going to be there was some additional number of cars or trips onto Balltown Road. Does anyone recall what that number was? From the old apartment building proposal. I mean, I didn't go back and look at my notes before the meeting. I'm sure if I did, I'll find it.
Oh, you mean the very old one?
Yeah, I mean the old one with the apartment, the one from 2017.
Whatever this is, I think it's going to be far less.
No, it's far less. I just wanted to know what that number was, because I remember that number was like a per day number as opposed to just during the peak hours.
No, we'd have to do some research on that, Mr. Khan, to find that. Yeah, we don't have that available.
It's my understanding that the organization that produces the statistics that you use for gauging traffic is updating things next month.
Right, and I did provide more information on that in the letter that talks about the Institute of Transportation Engineers. There is a new edition of the manual, and you had that question last time. From what I have, I mean, that manual is coming out any day now, so certainly in the time frame of this project, I can certainly provide the new information if those rates for the residential land uses have changed. But I know you had talked about COVID, and there's no indication that those numbers are changing from a COVID perspective. I mean, kind of the industry right now in the traffic world, we talk a lot about, some of the changes with COVID has actually spread out some of the peaks. So, when we're talking about this site with the level of, homes that it has, there is a low generation of traffic. I don't see anything coming out being anything drastic. I mean, over the years, there has been changes. So I can tell you some of the things like, again, that they're advertising is, talking about multimodal information for the trip generation data, reclassification of some of the land uses, integration of digital copies, it's more of how they're presenting things. They do some updates, you are correct, but I wouldn't anticipate there would be a big change in anything we're presenting. But
Well-
certainly, like, we're just waiting for the day. I mean, we're going to get it, believe me. So, but there is nothing about, COVID. I don't think, honestly, right now, I don't think we're not at a stable point yet in like the volume trends. So I think that maybe in future generations, there will be, updates to the manual that do account for that. But I don't expect that to be anytime soon.
Well, my basis really is anecdotal. I still know a lot of people working from home.
Right.
So they're not out in rush hour traffic. I know when I drive in rush hour traffic, it's not as bad as it was.
Right.
So I do wonder if there is an impact.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're seeing that if there's trend, like I said, like with that hybrid work and with, so, obviously for residential development, we're talking about commuters, right? So if there's maintains over time a percentage of people that don't go in, or that they, go in at different times because they're hybrid, or they're not, not necessarily going in from the 9 to 5, and that's where I'm saying, if anything, I think the new trends would reduce peak hour trips or spread them out, or change fluctuations in traffic. So where we're saying here, the townhomes with the trip generation of 10 AM trips and 14, that could go down, but I don't think there's anything drastic that's going to happen that, 20 townhomes is now going to generate something, totally different that's going to change our discussions.
I kind of think the biggest impact would be when someone is looking to make a left-hand turn into the Balltown Road area. And again, that's going to be probably a little more sporadic, where you're going to end up kind of creating some further backlogs. But again, in terms of the overall number, it's relatively small. It's just for that cohort of people going through at that moment, it's going to be very challenging. I think that's one of the reasons why, even talking earlier, going back to the alignment with Barcelona, was kind of an intriguing idea, because at least in that case, people can kind of like maneuver around by going around the car, which they won't be able to do, which will be less apt to do if there's not a street that they can kind of wedge their car through.
Well, you're really not supposed to do
And-
that.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, come on. I mean,
You're
I
really
know
not
people aren't.
supposed to.
Come on,
Well, I'll be honest with you, I was over there today with the CVS, and if it's me, I'm going to go out to Van Antwerp, and I'm going to go to the light, and I'm going to go that way to go south on Balltown Road. I mean, it's that simple to
faster.
me.
And
And-
we had talked about that before, having the 2 access points.
Yeah,
It
that's
does
what's-
give variation, and residents, there are going to be residents that are there. They're going to know which
Exactly.
drive to use at what time.
Right. But what I was referring to was somebody who was actually driving down Balltown Road, making a left-hand turn into the proposed development, the same way they would be making a left-hand turn into the CVS, where at least there's a little, well, it's not even there. You really can't get, around to that road. But I'm saying, if you align it a little, if there's an opportunity to have some kind of way to align it with Barcelona, then there's some kind of way to keep the traffic flowing. Not always, but in some cases.
Gotcha.
So-
Laura, what are you displaying right now?
Yeah, so this is the chip generation calculations for the 50 apartment units, and it says total
Good,
daily.
okay.
It says total daily $3.99, total AM
Okay.
peak hour 34, and total PM peak hour 40. That's what it says.
Good. That was a number that was stuck in my head from since back then, a number 400. Right? I don't know if I said it just now, but that was a number I know I had in my head, so I just wanted to verify that.
Yeah. So
Okay, so 2 things for the trip report for the current proposal that's in our packages. So clearly the AM and PM peak numbers, they're nowhere near what was there. So that's a good direction to move in. But I would like to know what the daily is, and what is the split between Van Antwerp and Balltown? So I don't know if that's included in the current traffic study you have that we haven't seen,
Right. So
but those are things I'm interested to know.
we don't have the daily numbers in there. We could certainly present those. As you know, typically for our analysis and what the industry guidelines are, is we really focus on those peak hours. So, everything we presented as of late is the morning peak hour and the PM peak hour. We can certainly, get that information. As you said, the peak hour trips are much lower. So obviously the daily trips are also going to follow that same pattern. We do provide some information saying, obviously Balltown Road is a heavier traveled and kind of the main line as you could compare it to Van Antwerp. So we're assuming like an 80-20% split in general of traffic for those intersections. Could be a little different, like we said, for the right out onto Van Antwerp, and, people may choose to do different movements to make their movements easier. But again, one of the things that was also brought up at the prior meeting, which we presented, is, we didn't really take a credit for the single family homes that are there. What we've presented is kind of straight out what the 20 townhomes would generate. There's another credit that would reduce those number even less if we took out the fact that there's single family homes right now that are generating traffic, at that site. So that was where we're saying 10 and 14 for the peak hour trips. That would go down to, 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. if we actually said, the 5 existing homes that are there are no longer going to be generating traffic either. So,
Yeah, no. I mean, it's up to you, obviously, if you want to take that credit or not. I mean, the numbers that we've seen in terms of the peak AM and PM, they move significantly in a much better direction, right? I think right now it's just making sure that we can manage those absolute numbers between Van Antwerp and its expectations, or the expectations of people in Van Antwerp,
Right.
and the expectations of people on Balltown Road, right? But
Correct.
yeah, I mean, it's not a matter of, we're not dealing with 300 cars a day, 400 cars a day anymore. I would be interested to know what the daily number is still, but this way at least we're talking about 2 different streets, and it goes back a little bit to the road layout thing too, right? Which is, and I think Mr. Oster is bringing this up. There are some merits for optimizing that road layout that'll help at least get people to go and give them options to get moving rather than get caught in congestion. Both people who are using those roadways and people from the new proposed complex.
Agreed. Yep. So just quickly, the other thing that was asked for was a crash evaluation. So there is details on the crashes in that study. We looked at, again, typical industry guidelines is a 3-year period. So we looked at March of 2017 through February of 2020. Again, we did those periods because that kind of is outside when, kind of the impact of COVID, because there was, as you all know, a large period of time last year where the volumes were much lower. So we didn't, obviously we didn't want to include that in the trends. So, we looked at 7 different intersections, 3 of them on Van Antwerp, and then we looked at Balltown, Van Antwerp, and up to Almeria. So in those 7 intersections, there's a total of 41 crashes, with Van Antwerp and Balltown and Almeria and Balltown at the highest number of crashes. Generally, most of them, the highest are rear end crashes, which, makes sense understanding the area. There was not, comparatively a lot of injury accidents, but, all that information is there. And then I think, at the end, it kind of goes back to the fact that this site does not generate a significant amount of traffic. We're reducing the number of curb cuts. So we're not feeling like we're going to be a detriment to those trends. Just trying to think if there was anything else. I mean, again, it was the reduction of the curb cuts, and then there was that question about, taking the credit for the 5 existing homes. What would that do? So that's essentially the other thing that was talked about was what is this site represent in comparison to the flow of traffic on Balltown Road and Van Antwerp. So using Department of Transportation data that's available, we looked at the peak hours, and the distribution of this site traffic is less than 1% of volumes on both of those roadways, if you look at the magnitude compared to what the flow of traffic already is. So that's kind of a summary of the additional information we provided. We can certainly provide those daily volumes for site generation as well. And as soon as that trip generation manual comes in, we can provide a supplemental letter also, just for
Thank you.
information of what the difference is. We're waiting for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you. Yep, thank you very much,
Sure.
Ms. Holzberger.
yeah, this was late breaking, so it didn't make the agenda packet.
I'm sorry,
It's
that's
okay, but I
my
don't know if
fault.
if we got that out to everybody via email yet. I just got a late copy. But everybody will get it and we'll get a chance to
Yeah.
review it. All right. So we-
I don't know. Laura, do you mind sharing the current drawing again that you have? There's, I mean, I'm just gonna, go, I'm just making a general comment here that, I actually, if you go back to the one before the road was moved, it just shows what I want to show a little bit better. Before the road, the Walltown Road moves south, right? I mean, I understand it's private property between Van Antwerp Village and WRGB. And I'm revisiting a point that I know everyone thinks has been, I mean, I know everyone has considered as being closed. But there's just something appealing if we were to just be able to have access to this development via that Van Antwerp Village Road and that access road in WRGB.
I wouldn't
It takes
count
out
on
some big pieces of the equation relative to direct access into Balltown and Van Antwerp.
Okay, well, comments noted.
So I don't know.
Yeah,
I think my end game with that comment is I don't know if there's something that the town can
WRGB,
intervene with if it's attractive to the applicant.
WRGB has already said no. We.
Yeah, no, I heard that. I heard that.
And I believe in the past, the apartment complex has also said no.
yeah, we have an open item that the applicant would at least ask the question and see what the impacts
Yeah.
were, if they were to agree, with easements and so on and so forth. And, shared agreements for maintenance and all the things that go along with that do complicate things, but it's worth at least asking the question and evaluating it. So we appreciate that.
My recollection is they looked at
Yeah.
it from a security standpoint.
Okay, all right, so where are we at?
I think I know where we're at. I think we're gonna look at this. We're gonna try to reduce the amount of variances. Probably gonna change the location of some of the buildings, and come back with that. We'll come back with where we get with Van Antwerp's question. And I think that's pretty much it for now,
Yep.
as far as I understand.
Right, once you update the, your view of what area variances are required,
right.
obviously the planning office will validate all those. Once we do get to a point where we're ready for sketch plan approval, when we get the recent round of questions answered, right?
Right.
We would have sketch plan approval and hopefully have a good agreement on what the area variances are. And if we're all in agreement, I would soon give sketch plan approval and make a recommendation to the zoning board of appeals on the area variances probably at the same time. And then we'll see you later and see what happens, right?
Absolutely.
And that's why I think one of the most important questions is, evaluating your economics and whether or not one unit can be tabled, or streamlined, whatever word you want to use, cut, because that does help out. If you don't get access to Van Antwerp Village, it helps the road question and it helps a lot of the side between units, between dual units. It, gives you a little bit more breathing space there. So that's at least important to evaluate. For us, we're interested, and I'm sure the ZBA, as you know, Mr. Caponera, will definitely be interested in any reduction to minimize the area variances. I'll run down some of the things I heard in no special order. We talked about the road being close. David brought up this good comment. Diversity in design, so that all the, the townhomes look different. So it gives it more of a single family home feel because they're not all exactly the same. The extra parking, which you said you would evaluate. We'll send it out for, emergency vehicle. So there may be a need for a hammerhead at that one longer turnaround. Update on the setbacks as we just discussed in the number of units. And I think it was a good point that David had about, combining units that could eliminate some of the need for variances. So if you had one or two of those be a triple townhome, that might end up solving some of the problems. I'm not sure how it would look, but that has a potential. I think that was what your comment was, right, David? Two or a three combined unit or a four possibly
Yeah.
with two center units, that might be appropriate, at least to consider. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's the right answer. And then the traffic numbers, what the split, and I think you said 80-20, just, validate that, and then what the daily numbers are. I think that's the kind of things I heard. And,
Me too.
and
Did I miss anything?
I just had I just had one comment, well, two comments really from the Complete Streets Committee. They noted that the sidewalk, you're putting in or updating the sidewalk, along Van Antwerp up to here, but then it stops. Like they'd like to see the sidewalk connect to the Van Antwerp Village so that there wasn't an end of a sidewalk and then a patch of grass before you can get to somewhere that you can walk. So if you can show the sidewalk connecting to Van Antwerp there. And then the other thing that they noted is they've been working on a mid-block crossing with DOT in this area. And so if you guys are reaching out to DOT on the curb cut or the changes to the curb cuts here, they did want to fold into DOT. I guess there's a lot of, I think they must be middle schoolers going to Van Antwerp Middle School that they tried to get to cross at the Van Antwerp Lake, but they don't. And I guess they do a ton of mid-block crossings like up in here. So if when we're having discussions with the DOT, we're making some things better, they wanted us to also discuss with the DOT if we can add a mid-block crosswalk somewhere, somehow.
Okay, questions? No? All right, any other comments from the board virtually or here? Anything from the applicant? Anybody?
We're good. Thank you very
Good
much.
direction, we're okay?
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a work in progress, but I think we made headway. We had some good questions tonight, and we look forward to the next iteration, and I think we're getting closer.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Thanks for coming tonight. All right, and I thank everybody for their patience for listening to that discussion, and we'll move on agenda, which next is 1851 Union Street site plan application for the new maintenance building at the Mohawk Country Golf Club, and Mr. McPartlin is the project lead, and I see Mr. Sweet and company tonight. I know there's been lots of emails going back and forth, try to keep this thing going. But is it Mr. Kimmer? Hey, I'm finally starting to learn some names after 25 years.
I think you're okay, David. I'll put your drawings up there.
Okay. Oh, it's easy.
Okay.
I don't know what you're wondering.
Yeah, me neither.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Dave Kimmer from ABD Engineers. I'm here on behalf of Mohawk Golf Club. Got Bill Sweet with me as well. As you guys, I think, are all aware, the golf club is looking to redevelop their maintenance facility by adding a 12,000 square foot building to replace a smaller existing building that they have. It's pretty much the gist of it. We met last time in August, and since then, we provided to the planning department and the board a few supplemental pieces of information. Stormwater report that demonstrates that we're reducing the runoff from the existing conditions. A diagram of the building elevation that shows the existing or the proposed grade next to the proposed building, which essentially demonstrates that the height of the building will not require us to get a variance. And we've also submitted an overall plan that shows the building in proximity to the property lines, basically showing that it's about 1,000 feet away from the nearest property line. That's about it. And if you guys have any questions, I'm sure you do, I'll be happy to answer them.
Well, Mr. McPartlin is the project lead, so I guess I'll ask him if he has anything that he'd like to kick it off with.
No, Mr. Kimmer kind of gave a good summary. I think the only other thing I'll mention is area of disturbance is coming in under an acre. So provided that we can get a TDE review, and any comments they might have on the current drainage analysis or architectural plans, engineering plans, can be resolved. This is a pretty complete package. It's been before the Architectural Review Board. From what I hear, they were pleased with some of the elevation details, and it seems as though it's well positioned, far away from any residences, and also well shielded by some existing vegetation. It's nice to see the addition of a little retention basin there to handle some of the runoff from the larger section of this proposed development area.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. McPartland. I think the magic number is like 1,000 feet from anything, pretty much, no matter what direction you choose. The 900 something was the
Right.
minimum, so
Yeah.
it's quite extensive there.
I mean, at the end of the day, it seems like the biggest risk here is related to the drainage, and the one that'll suffer most from any issues there is the golf course itself, right?
Mhm.
So we just need to make sure, as the owner and applicant, that you guys just nail that one as correctly as possible.
Right. All right. I know that the estimates come in. Have you shared those with Laura, with the applicant yet? Because it's fairly new information.
No, Clark collected them. I think the TDE review was, I think the cheapest one was $2,000. So we were gonna.
Okay, yeah,
Reject.
Clark, let me know you guys were working on getting it done, so yeah, shouldn't be a big deal.
Right.
And that's their estimate. If they do the review and it's more simple than that, then the escrow gets returned. Yeah. But I
Right.
think based on what we saw, Patrick had looked at it, that we'd probably do, Weston Sampson was the lowest one. And then we can get that going, just to have them look at the stormwater stuff. And then,
Yeah,
the planning department's fine with this proposal. I think it looks good.
yeah, I know that you guys are, construction season's getting tight, and I know you want to keep moving. Now, there's one building that needs to come down in order to support this project, right? Is that, maybe Mr. Sweet might want to come out. I didn't know can they apply for a demolition permit independent of this approval if they're ready?
Well, so, because it's under a site plan review and there's some, it's pretty small, but generally speaking, you shouldn't disturb earth when there's a potential for any kind of seeker determination. So my recommendation would be that if we're comfortable with the way it looks, that we could call for a resolution and then work on the engineering in the interim.
Let's see, next meeting is October 18th, so it's
18th.
Almost like a few weeks away, right? Is that a few weeks?
Yeah, because we only have
Yeah.
one meeting in October because of the weird holidays.
So we would have an opportunity to hear back from the TDE, and if there are any significant comments, obviously we could address them, and if not, or include the conditions in the resolution at that point in time. So I guess I'd ask Mr. McPartland, are you okay calling for a tentative resolution for approval? Subject obviously to TDE comments.
I sure am. I think we should be even in 3 weeks' time, much closer.
Okay. Is anybody concerned with that?
Sounds good to me.
No, we can see a lot of
That's good to me too.
no's, so it sounds like it's a reasonable thing to have a tentative resolution for the next meeting and get the engineering review and probably get that done within the next couple of weeks, and then we'll be in good shape.
Is your plan to build this year?
Yes, Bill Sweet, representing Mohawk Golf Club. The plan would be, yes. And to the demolition question, the building that we're going to be taking down is basically, it's a farm-type structure. It's a wood frame with metal panel. It'll be down in a day. So that's why I'm not really worried about, a long lead time to get the demo permit and whatever. And it is all in the area of disturbance in that 0.74 acre area. So our first plan would be to obviously just demolish that, pull the slab out, and then get started with the site work. But yes, the plan would be to hopefully be in the ground in November and then be able to turn that building before the golf season starts in April, May. At least the shop portions of it, if we're still completing the locker rooms and the break room and all the finished areas, that may lag a little bit. But if I can get him the maintenance facility area that he needs for his equipment, that would be the most important thing.
Yeah, if you can get
This
the stuff
timeline is
inside, right?
working Very nicely for us.
Yeah.
So, yes, if we could do the resolution on the 18th, that would work great with our schedule.
Okay, well, we have a tentative resolutions
Wonderful.
for the 18th then.
Thank you very much.
All right, no, thank you. Thanks for your patience tonight. Any other questions at all before we move on? Nope. So we're all set, Mr. Kimmer.
All right, thanks again.
All right, thank you. All right, and our final discussion item for tonight is 1448 Balltown Road, that site plan application amendment detailing outdoor storage areas at Ace Hardware. And Mr. Costa, representing applicants here for us tonight.
Good evening, Nick Costa from Advanced Engineering and Surveying. And we're here tonight to present the site plan amendment for the hardware store located on Balltown Road. This was in front of the planning board. I don't recollect the exact date when it was here, but it did receive site plan approval. And the owner has made improvements to the site and has been operating at the site and has found that there was some things that he wanted to, or they wanted to modify. And there's been a couple modifications, such as the concrete sidewalk. It was coming in from the Balltown side of the road, and it actually is now going to this side. Flip it over to the larger map. Next time, I'm going to send these color renderings to Laura, so they can be shown on the screen. I didn't realize that we were doing that. So the sidewalk, as I mentioned, is now going to this access road. And there is a sidewalk there. There's an existing sidewalk that will connect to, just like it was connecting to the existing sidewalks on Old Town Road.
Jengus, can you hear Nick?
He fades in and out. If I'm really careful, I can. So
Nick, you
if there
can
is
pull
something
that
that can
right
make
up
it
with
better,
you.
that'd
You
be
can
good.
pull it right
Yeah,
off.
it's on a
like, rip it
Velcro
off.
base. There you go.
Yeah, and then you.
Is that better? Is that better?
Yeah, I think it is. Continue.
Okay.
Yes, please.
So.
Yes, that's definitely better.
Okay, sorry about that. So
Yeah.
I was going through some of the modifications that were made to the site plan since the time the planning board approved the site plan. So one of the changes was the concrete sidewalk. Instead of the concrete sidewalk going or coming in from Balltown Road, it's actually shown to be coming in off of the access drive. And it still goes to an existing concrete sidewalk that's parallel to that access drive. There's been some rearrangement at the rear of the site. There's been some rearrangement based on, once they got to the site, they figured out where they were going to be placing things for, display. And then that access drive that comes in off of Na Road, when you take that first right, we had some parking spaces at that location shown on the site plan that was approved, and now we're showing some display and some areas. That's over here, Laura.
The loading zone area.
Yeah, that's it.
Here.
And so the loading zone area is better defined. Also, at the site, there's a propane tank and also EV charging stations. And there's parking associated with those EV stations that's just below that loading zone. Thank you, Laura. And then the parking area was reconfigured. We think we made a better layout that's more efficient. And we've also added a garage over closer to this access road off of Balltown Road. Thank you, Laura. That's the one. So And the garage is basically there because they do have a forklift at the site, and they would like to have it, obviously, for safety and weather-related. They would like to have a small building to store that forklift. So that's pretty much the changes. The parking spaces, there were a couple more parking spaces that then in the approved site plan, there were, I believe, 46 parking spaces, and now we are showing 43. But we're still within the parking requirements in that zone. So we had a couple, extra parking spaces, and those were up in that area where the loading zone is. They were parallel parking, so those parking spaces weren't really the best parking spaces. But again, we do meet the town requirements for the parking spaces for this type of facility. So that's really the summary of what's been changed at the site. So that's why we're here requesting a site plan amendment. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. Or if I don't have the answers, then I guess I would have to get back to you. Thank you.
Just one question. In the back, the road coming in from Knott, there is a little bit of a raised curb for some segments of those where some segment of that road where the parking lot is. What's going to happen with that curb? Are you going to completely flatten it, or are you going to?
The existing curb, I think that was installed per the site plan that was approved, Mr. Khan.
So it's more where those parking spots are about. It's kind of like in the center of the.
I know what you mean. There's
So-
sort of like asphalt, right? There's like a little
Yeah.
bit of a speed bump that goes along
Yeah.
the edge of this.
So was that
access
something
road.
that was installed, or was that something that was just there?
No, I
before?
believe that was already there, Mr. Khan.
Yeah.
There was, I don't believe there was anything installed at that particular area.
Right.
You-
So the key thing there is that I'm as a driver, I'm not sure exactly what I'm supposed to do with that. Do I drive over it? Do I not drive over it?
Yeah, I'm not sure why that was done that way. I don't know if previously, it was created because of the grading that was done at the site.
Yeah.
And it's a result of that, or if they had an issue with, but if there was an issue with people cutting through and speeding, the speed bump or hump would be the opposite way, not
Right, it'd be going the
parallel.
other direction. So in any case, I think that's something that just needs to be addressed in terms of, should it be there or not be there? I mean, if it was clearly a curb at the right height, you would know, obviously,
That's correct.
you don't drive over it, but
Right.
it's not.
No, that's.
So,
And again, I think it has to do with the grading that's in that area, because the road is at a different elevation. But we could certainly take a look at it. I'm not sure. To take it out, it may mean some extensive pavement work, to cut that curb out.
But maybe you should like paint it yellow or something. Like if it's supposed to be there, because I'm always confused by it. I forget that it's there and then I drive over it.
Okay.
Because it's the same color as the pavement, and then I'm like, oh, whoops. I mean, I feel like better defining it for what it is would be more helpful.
Okay, well, we'll
Yeah,
certainly take a look at that.
Well, is it
yeah, something that
needed
makes
there?
it clear what its intent is, i.e.
what?
to be driven over or not driven
Is it
over.
needed?
Yeah, I don't know, because I accidentally drive over it all the time. But it's not, I mean, it's the same color as the pavement. You can
It is.
barely
Well, I've
see
driven
it.
over it too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think pretty much everybody does. That's why I'm asking if it's needed.
Yeah, I don't know. Because if he's repaving the parking lot like he says, I mean, maybe you don't
Yeah.
have to have the bump
Take it away.
anymore. Yeah.
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 I mean, on the remaining changes, I guess there's nothing that we have any big heartache over, right, Laura? I mean, the key thing was, does the 43 parking spots end up, they're within the, what's required for this property, right?
That's correct.
And-
Yeah, and they're not doing any storage on the south side of the building, which is down here. Like that didn't end up at all being
Right.
storage. So like, we would remove them being allowed to store here. That's not a good place to store.
That's
Right.
that's,
Put
Laura,
the storage here, and then this is like where they have their mulch and stuff.
that's a
Yeah.
good point. I think once they got to the site and they started to figure things out, they saw that was not a good area to store anything,
Which,
Yeah.
for the record, we did say that.
Yeah. Yes,
Hey,
we
what was
did.
your
Yes,
suggestion?
Laura, you did. And I think actually, I mean, I don't think there's a big deal with that sidewalk being where it is now. You know, maybe preserves some of the green space on facing Balltown Road. It might be a good thing too. But
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah, and I think it works better with the grade of the site too. I
Yeah.
think that it was going against the contours, perpendicular to the contours as you go out towards Bulltown Road. And this way, it worked with the contours. Plus, there was more distance to make the transition in the elevation.
Yeah, it was going to have stairs. So they said, and to have the ADA compliance, they preferred to just do a simple connection over to the other side.
Right, that's correct.
I did have a question though. Like right now, there's an island here that has trees and it's kind of grayed out. Does that mean that you would remove the island with trees here? And this would all become painted?
Yeah, that would be for the handicap. That's where all the handicap access is going to be from, Laura.
So how do you keep like, is the proposal to keep the cars from driving forward in the parking spots, just those little parking thingies? Or like bollards, or what do you do to keep them from driving onto the hatch marks?
Well, it would just, there's signs, there's handicap signs that would be placed in front of all those spaces.
These ones here?
Yeah, they
Just
get
a, just
they
a
get signage.
handicap space.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's just signage.
On
Right.
each one of them?
Yeah.
Yes. You know, the
So you'd probably do the sign in front and then the little parking thing on the ground?
Yes.
What do you ever call those little concrete things?
bumpers.
Yeah, bumpers, whatever they are.
So the sign that kind of directs you now when you come in off of Knott Street east, there's a sign one way tells you to go. That's all changing around, right? I'm having trouble with my computer to actually see this up tight here. Died on me or something here.
Yeah, I think that was on the original.
Yeah, the
site
original,
plan.
but that's got to be modified because obviously you can't go there because of all the storage areas and everything, right?
Right, that's correct.
Yeah, I'm just having trouble pulling this up, and we didn't get anything, we didn't get those, right? Laura?
No.
Those
Can you
color-
email those to me though, so I can share them?
Just to make it easier to see, you know?
Yeah, no, I apologize. I didn't realize that. I
Yeah.
could send those and we could show them.
And it's good that when we have it at home in our agenda packet, they
Yeah.
can pull it up at home and take a tight look at it. It's like, I'm not just having difficulty.
Yeah, for whatever it's
hard
worth,
to
this
see.
drawing shows up a lot better in your screen, Lord, than it does in our agenda package.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. The garage is appropriately sized, Nick?
Yes,
I mean,
that's correct. That they have one forklift and they do have, some other equipment, tools that they like to, store every night, secure every night. So that'll take care of their needs.
and what's that? So at some point we'll see what that garage actually looks like, right? I mean, it should be something that, I don't know, is that an ARB thing too, Laura, David?
I mean, it's definitely a good idea to know what it looks like. Yeah, for sure.
Can we understand a little better the location of the garage? I would personally like to see it attached to the building.
Yeah,
Perhaps
that's
in
thanks, Patrick. That's another comment I was gonna make.
So if we slide that over to the building, we would be taking out the handicap access ramp that's currently located there. And then as far as trying to place it elsewhere on the site, then it doesn't, because it's for, we would have to actually, over by the loading zone, we would have to pave and fill next to the building to get it up in that area, Laura.
Yeah, right there.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at too.
Yeah.
We'll certainly take a look at, again, but that would have to, that would have to be paved, and I think that there would have to be some grading that would have to be done, where here.
But again, it's doable, right? I mean, I think a
Yes,
garage
yes.
up against the building makes a lot more sense than, and I think that's probably an ideal spot for it. I fully get what you're saying about the work that is required to do it, but
And you're gonna run power to the building, right? To the garage?
Yeah, it'll have to have at least lights.
yeah.
Right.
What size is the garage? Like, I'm having difficulties here seeing and everything.
22 by 30.
That's good size, yeah.
It's just something to give a strong piece of consideration to, because then it makes a lot more both structural and appearance sense, right? And I think it's even more convenient for using your garage for not just equipment storage, but whatever you want to put in there.
Yes, that's correct. It's mostly for the forklift, but there are probably a snow blower and shovels and other tools that would be kept there.
Yeah, if I may, one of my other issues with the location is just general flow of traffic within the site. If you have this one-way path that's entitled loading zone, that's making a full U-turn, it's almost cut off a little by the garage. And that garage also stands in the way of pedestrian access from the ramp to a majority of the parking lot. So you have kind of a tough little corner of the parking lot there with the garage placed where it is.
Yeah, well, we'll certainly take a look at placing it up on
And
that
up here.
corner.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good suggestion. So,
Yeah. It's just, yeah, it's extra work, maybe more cost, but the payoff and the benefit will more than be there, right?
yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So you guys probably saw this in the agenda statement, but I think that the parking lot flows better this way. It kind of is almost working like that anyway. It's a little bit confused when you park there. I think this is better parking configuration, but I do think that it still needs more trees.
Okay, so where we at? I'm sorry, I'm having difficulties here. So I haven't had a real good opportunity because I'm things are slowed down here or something to understand all the changes and whether I have any comments. Are you going to come back again with some more additional information on the size of the garage? Well, you got the size, but architecturally, what it's going to look like,
Yeah.
and evaluate the comment regarding whether it should be relocated or made part of the existing structure.
Well, yeah, if that's what the board, if you'd like to see that, then.
Yep.
Or at least
we will have.
Evaluate it. I mean,
Yeah, Chris, you're good with that, right?
Yeah, Mr. Khan and Mr. Laflamme are project leads on this.
Yeah.
Um,
Chris is
there-
probably on mute.
Is there anything?
I'm here, yep.
Is there anything in critical path right now that is being held up, or concerns from the town or from the applicant? Is it things at a standstill right now, any of the changes, or is it these changes going to occur this year, or where are we at with this project?
Yeah, they would like to get them done this year.
Because we're still working on the greenhouse, and that's not going to be till spring, is that correct?
No, they're working on it now. I think.
Yeah,
they'll have
they're
them-
working on the greenhouse, yeah.
Yeah, they should have the greenhouse done in probably by the end of December, I think.
Okay. I drove by, but I was in the back. I didn't go out and around the front to see.
Yeah.
No, they're working.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's been fun watching it going up.
Oh,
Yeah, they're not under a stop work order because they've been working with us on this and we knew the plan was coming, but they are actually, I mean, this is basically almost what they're doing now. So this isn't causing them problems, but we do want to make sure that it's formalized and everybody's okay with it.
Right.
And that we've got it all contained within a site plan that's approved by the planning board.
no, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, given everything we've said about, especially that weird curb thing, whether it gets marked, et cetera, removed, whatever. I'm okay with all the specific elements, right? As long as the parking works. But if we can get that garage into a better location for the property, and also to Laura's point, whatever there's an opportunity to put in something trees or something green, then, we'll give that consideration. But the specific elements, I think I'm okay with them.
Okay.
And I had one tiny point that I think I might have mentioned before. The sign for the accessible ramp was hard to see from most parking spots. If there's some way of improving that, so people aren't halfway down the stairs before they see it.
Okay, no, we can certainly relocate it to make it more visible. You're saying it's too far down?
I'm not sure what it is. I just know I thought there was when I remember there was supposed to be one, and I didn't see it, didn't see the sign, and I was going down the steps and then, oh, there it is.
Okay, yeah, so if we move it before, up closer to that, the top, it would be better. Yeah.
And part of it might have been that there was something obstructing the view too.
Yeah. It probably, that may be the case.
Might have been that island to some extent.
Okay. Yeah, as far as trees, we're kind of limited to what we can do on this side because there's a power lines behind the garage.
Oh, there's power lines there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just know that the trees. The trees were kind of not in great shape, but there was a decent amount of trees here in this island here that got taken down, and I know that there's a landscaping plan on here that the tree council is working on.
Right.
But yeah, it would also seem like it'd be nice to sort of tree line here. Like, I don't know how high those power lines are. And then the other thing that we talked about, we're meeting with Angelo, is that there was this whole line of trees was taken out here. And I know
Right.
the right of way is really tough, but
Yes.
I mean, the tree council is even willing to like go down to the bank and work with you because there was a lot of tree removal on this site, and there's been almost no trees planted.
Yeah,
back.
And over in that area, the reason for removing the tree was because we widened the driveway. So unfortunately, yeah, there was quite a few trees.
Yeah, I mean, there was no line. You've got them on here. There was a line of like.
Yes, that's right. The existing conditions showed all of that.
Yeah, they don't want to plant anything there. It's going to end up impeding traffic and getting causing a problem. But there could be some type of shrubbery or something along the line there. You're talking about the road entranceway off.
Yeah, the road entranceway.
On the
Yeah.
right. I mean, I'm not sure, whose property is whose there with the bank and how far it goes, but.
Yeah, it's
The
right.
property line's right
Yeah, it's
here.
right along that dark edge is the edge of pavement and that curbing that was installed. And then right maybe 2 feet, to the left as we're looking at it is the property line. So there's not much room to do any kind of planting without having an agreement with the bank.
With the
to allow
bank,
us to
yeah.
do that. And like you said, Laura, I think the applicant is willing to discuss that with them.
Yeah, and like I said, the tree council is even willing to go down and tell the I don't know that the bank does own it. I'm not sure that they would care.
Right.
Because I don't even know if they mow it. Like I don't know how that works exactly because it's so far away from the bank and there's actually a line of trees that you're showing here.
Yep.
Between here and the
Yep.
bank, they would never even see if you planted, but obviously they have to give you permission. There's no question.
And there's also an elevation.
Yeah, there's quite an elevation change too, but like that was kind of nice because there was a line of trees. They were a little too close to the road, but if you put them farther away and space them farther apart, you could have a nice stately line of trees as you were approaching that.
It shows Balltown Road because you drive through there, you can see Balltown Road and everything too, from.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. So, and you need some of that green space in the town center overlay district to have those nice like specimen trees, whatever you want to put there. So.
Okay. So is this a work in progress? We got.
Yeah,
one
so
more-
he'll see if he can relocate the garage.
Right.
Double check on the tree planting and then check on the accessibility sign and then also give us a spec sheet or cut sheet of what the garage is going to look like and look into the curb thing.
All right. If you have any of these colored renderings that you have or whatever, please, share those too. So,
Laura will have them tomorrow morning.
okay.
I'll email
Now we can.
tonight, actually.
So you can share with us whether or not the curb thing is a stormwater thing or if it was a traffic thing, and if it needs to stay, it should probably be painted and clarified. Because I think even on your plan, the curb thing may even extend to your loading zone. And so you could figure out on your repaving plan, like where to leave it if you need it or how to paint it or
Yeah.
whatever. Cause it is a weird thing and I drive over it every time.
Well, no, thanks for
Yeah.
pointing that out, but, you know, if there's an opportunity to take it out when the paving gets done.
That might make the most
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
It just, you know, transition.
Yeah.
You know, but if it has to remain, if we find out there's a reason for it, that it has to remain, then we'll paint it. We'll paint it like a yellow color.
Yeah.
so that
Or
it,
something. Yeah.
Stands out.
Laura, I just wanted to bring up one other thing the board might want to consider. Could you zoom in on the back of the building again a little bit? I know during our site visit there over the summer, what really instigated this was the fact that the current site plan, I think, has a 50-foot by 10-foot area for storage of outdoor materials.
Yeah.
And we had noticed that it had grown substantially and they were basically stored all over the back part of the property.
Mhm.
So we asked them to put together their wish list of what they would like to see, and that's what the site plan currently shows. We've since talked a little bit about, would some of this go before the ARB, or this is kind of a combination of storage of things like sacks of mulch and stone, but then there's also areas that are kind of displaying more finished product. It's almost like a little outdoor sales area. And I didn't know if the board wanted to go a level deeper in some of these areas of what that would look like. Or we talked about what kind of shelves would they have that some of this material was displayed on, or are we saying you can store whatever you want on any of these areas is the question. Because you do kind of walk through it all to get into
Yeah.
the store.
Yeah, I mean, my first reaction is that fundamentally it's outdoor retail space and they should really do what is appropriate and attractive to consumers there, right?
Right.
I'm not sure what our capacity is. I mean, I know you mentioned ARB, but I'm not sure what our capacity is to go any deeper on that, but.
Yeah, so Clark and I had discussed with them, and I think it can be a good ongoing conversation because, like, right now in the area that's landscape area where Nick's gonna look at potentially relocating the garage, they kind of just place things willy nilly out there to say a nice.
Yeah,
and so like to
yeah, I
have
have a
like
hunch
a
that's probably
a
more
more
discipline of
formalized plan
store
of
employees.
the outdoor storage is not a bad thing. But Clark and I can keep working with them on. I know Angelo was going to formalize that plan a little bit and share it with us to some extent. Like, you know, I think probably in the loading zone that's mostly going to be pallet things, which you could pull your car in and load up, and then the stuff that's on the back of the building. There's probably going to be more like the wind spinners and the plants in the summertime and the shovels and things and salt and stuff in the wintertime. But having it just be a little more organized, I think, is key. And so just making sure that that's clearly communicated to them and having a plan for shelving and stuff like that, not a bad idea. But it doesn't have to go, I don't think it has to be to the planning board where we're like approving the exact shelving. I just think it's a good idea to understand how it's going to be organized so that he has an understanding and we know that the site's going to be taken care of.
And it will change seasonally.
Because it will definitely change seasonally. And I think it's going to change more now that he's there.
Right.
Now that he's there and he sees how it's working and he doesn't just have to throw stuff out the door to get
Yep.
the sales, I think he can make a better plan of how to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay. All right, any other questions from the board? If not, I guess we'll see you back on the agenda for the October 18th. Is that where?
Yeah, that's what
Is that going to make?
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of up to you guys because we only have one meeting in October. We could put a tentative resolution for approval if we like the concept. And then if you have updated materials that you can send to us quickly, we could email them to the board ahead of time.
Right.
Or we have one more meeting to look at it and then resolution.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good either way. It's up to Mr. Khan and Mr. Laflamme.
I'm okay with having a tentative resolution. I was thinking about suggesting it, and I'm glad you took the step and did it, Laura. Because honestly, Nick, if you can just get us the stuff beforehand,
Yes.
if the key thing right now is really the garage, right?
Right.
And so,
Right. And we can certainly send it sent that to you in the next few days, just as a draft form, so that we
Yeah.
can get some comments and.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, and if we could look it up on the board, and I guess, I mean, a lot that's driving it is just our one meeting in October, right? But
Yeah, you may have a lot of items on that one meeting.
Yeah,
That's okay.
yep, we're good.
Okay.
yeah, no, I meant so that we don't have you wait until a November meeting for approval.
We appreciate that. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah.
Conlon.
Okay, all right, we'll see. Yeah, we'll have a tentative resolution for next meeting and get us some information. And we have 3 weeks to review it, and hopefully we'll get there.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so reports, planning department updates. I guess it'd be Laura or Clark, or both.
So I mean, I don't have, I'll let Clark handle the planning department updates of any site plans that he wanted to talk to you about, but I did just want to let you guys, I'm the COVID-19 updates. Yeah. Do you have anything specifically you wanted to talk about them to, Clark?
I really don't. The other projects are moving along, but there's nothing really notable to.
Yeah, obviously you guys can see Kelt's farm was cleared and started. He's still getting sewer approval from DEC, but a lot of the work has started to take place over there. And I was talking to David about Knott's Landing. If you drive by there in the daytime, you can see they laid down sod clearly on their detention basins, and they've grass seeded and hayed the remainder of the site. So it's getting very close to finish, I think, but there's still an issue with the sewer line that he hasn't addressed over there as well. We've got some sewer issues on a
Which is
variety
that
of
one,
things
Laura?
that are being built. Knott's Landing, right?
Oh, Knott's
Yeah,
Landing.
Knott's
Okay.
Landing. But yeah, it's very busy in the planning department, and we're trying to make sure that we're very keeping to the conditions that the planning board puts on projects now. So
Good. And not just a question on the COVID thing, and town board, you have to register in advance in order to attend the meeting. Are we also doing that?
So we are not, because I don't have access to the attendance system. So what I did was, if you look on the website, I put, just reach out to me if you don't want to come and you want to attend virtually, because anybody can attend virtually. But what I'm going to try and do, because right now we have no videographers, so Jean's in there, is if we start to get too many people, she'll just keep them out there. They can come in and present for their item and then go, unless there's some way for me to get access to that system. But it worked okay tonight.
Yeah, I don't expect a problem unless we,
Unless we have a public
one of our
hearing.
public hearings, one of these projects, you can expect that there may be a larger.
Yeah, so
turnout,
I'll follow up and see if I
And-
can get access to that.
I don't know legally if you can tell people they cannot come in person to a public hearing.
No, I know, that's what I mean, for sure. Like, I think that we can just recycle in the people that need to talk, but
We've done that with overflow crowds on like dog ordinances and such.
yeah.
They've been our biggest hearings, I think.
The which ones?
Dog ordinances.
Oh, yes. I think the Miller Brothers, though, was extremely well attended, in 2017. So if that starts to have public hearings and stuff, and we still have the 6 foot, then we probably will need to start trying to figure out how to stagger the public. But yeah, anybody's always welcome. You couldn't, if you've got a hybrid meeting and they want to come in person, I think you just have to figure out a way to cycle them in, like even if they can't all be in the building at the same time, so that they can hear it out there visually and then come in and speak when they need to. It's tough. I'm hoping that
It's a ZBA, it's the same problem, right?
the ZBA is the same problem. Because this is why we stayed virtual much longer than the town board, because we typically have, just like tonight, we had 9, probably, maybe 7 people for one item. And then each person has their own thing, right? So you've got the 7 or 9 board members, and then you've automatically already got 15 people in the audience, and you've maxed out your room, and you haven't there's no public even calculated in there. That has always been the problem with the planning board and the zoning board, by virtue of the fact that we just have larger boards and applicants, whereas the town board does not have that, which is why I think they have a different type of way of handling their meetings. But I would never not allow somebody in. I think we just have to cycle them in somehow so that we're at the capacity is okay.
Is there anything else under planning department updates or COVID-19?
Well, I thought this was the best hybrid meeting so far. What did you guys think?
It went well.
Yeah, it went fine.
Were you guys able to hear people mostly? Yeah, as long as they were talking into
Yeah,
the
once,
mics.
once I got past my personal connection issues, which I don't know what they were. Yeah.
Okay.
Truth be told, Laura, I think I think the challenge is when I think you have a lot of people, members of the public, who might not be as comfortable with the technology.
That is. Yes.
That's when I think when you start to get delays. I think we've all kind of gotten used to it now. But I think it works very well for allowing people in the public to speak. But I do think sometimes that, there is issues when we have like 18, 19 people and there's a topic that people really care about. And during privilege of the floor, during a hearing, people have a lot to say. And sometimes I think that's where the biggest technology issues, not really on our end, but on the other end.
I agree. Yeah. And you guys don't even see the time we take to try and prep the people from the public or the applicants to be able to handle it. It's a lot of work. But we just want to make them as completely accessible as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's why, there are comments about like, it's inappropriate to have, why are we doing things virtual? I'm like, this format actually, I think works. I mean, I think ideally would be, to be in person would be ideal, but I think it also works okay this way. And frankly, I think it opens it up for a lot of people, maybe who don't want to go to town hall, maybe don't want to be in a crowd, to have this opportunity to participate.
Yeah, I think it's as fair as you can be. It gives everyone the opportunity with their comfort level to participate. If the only ones that might be hard for is the people who want to participate don't have comfortable with technology and don't want to come here.
Well,
but yeah.
And there's some people who actually don't even have the technology.
Right. And then they're still, I think, very hesitant to go to public. So that's the tough thing, right?
Yeah.
But if there's people who aren't comfortable with the technology and they're happy to come, now they can come. It's just that there's a couple, right, that it's still hard to reach. But if you guys ever have ideas, I'm always happy to reach. And I said this before, I can set them up in libraries. I can set them up with laptops. I can do almost anything to get people to be able to attend public meetings.
Yep.
I would just like it to be a platform where the provider isn't looking to track everything on my computer.
Yeah, I know.
And that's a big concern. And that means when I do a virtual on the town board meeting, since I come in the way I do to avoid all that, I can't speak at the town board meetings.
Yeah.
I don't get that connection. And
I'm
not the only one who has that concern.
With the Gmails. Yeah. I can bring that up again. That is an issue of our platform that I actually can't control. So
totally beyond your control.
Yeah. But I do understand that concern. Which is why if people didn't want to create a Gmail, that's why we had the live stream. But the live stream has issues of its own. So
occasionally, yeah. But mostly it's been reliable.
Yeah, it's been pretty good. Yeah.
Okay.
We can always go to Zoom and have 45-minute free meetings. That'll send. I think our town board can be open to that.
Okay. All right, Mr. Henry or Laura, do you have anything else?
No, that's good.
Okay. All right. Hey, for commission business tonight, I'm just going to ask if anybody, make it easier. If anybody has anything, here's your opportunity to ask questions or to have any statements to make. I have nothing. Anybody wish to be heard? No? Okay, thank you. All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Osser. Have a second?
Second.
By Mr. Khan.
Okay.
His hand was up quick. All right. All those favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, hearing no one opposed, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to planning.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Clark, and thanks, Laura, for all your hard work.
And